What's good, y'all? We're back with another video, back with another banging for me. Today I got y'all with a reaction. Today we're gonna be reacting to creepypastas based on true stories. Sorry for all of the gameplays, I guess, that we've been doing a lot on the channel. I know I haven't brought the reaction back in a while. I don't know if the mic is too loud or yeah, sorry for the amount of gameplays and not enough reactions. I'm trying to mix both in between. I might just make a channel for gaming, so if that's something that you're interested in, please go subscribe. I'll leave the link in the description to the new channel. We're back with a new reaction, so let's get into it. I love y'all as always. Let's get into the video. Alrighty, man, let's get into the video without more said. Hold on, y'all can't hear it. Okay, y'all can hear it now. Let's go.
Creepypastas surrounding Disney's alleged unexplained abandonment of certain resorts in the Bahamas and in the US. The Abandoned by Disney creepypasta was originally written by Slime Beast, a well-known internet horror writer who's created several viral creepypastas, including Funny Mouth, I Hate You, and Lost Episodes. The Abandoned by Disney story basically goes that at some undefined point in the 2000s, Disney allegedly spent $30 million on a resort in the Bahamas called Treasure Island.
That's crazy work.
Which, according to the story, they supposedly later abandoned without a convincing reason. Based on the creepypasta, there was another resort that Disney abandoned under mysterious circumstances. This one was located near the beachside city of Emerald Isle in North Carolina, and it was supposed to be a jungle-themed resort by the name of Mowgli's Palace. According to Slime Beast, the project was extremely controversial from the start, as Disney allegedly did some pretty sketchy stuff to acquire the land they required for the palace. Still, the creepypasta mentions that construction for Mowgli's Palace did end up getting completed and even started to receive tourists for a while before being unexplainably abandoned in some pretty murky circumstances.
Yikes.
The author of the story then alleges that he ended up visiting the abandoned resort to take some pictures and see what he could find, and that's where the creepypasta gets pretty disturbing. Based on the story, the resort had pretty much been stripped bare and left to rot over the years. Most of the things that were big enough to take back from the resort had been stolen, leaving only desks, refrigerators, abandoned statues, other miscellaneous objects, and the buildings themselves to show for the once functional Mowgli's Palace.
Damn!
Allegedly, Disney had also released their exotic animals onto the grounds upon abandoning the resort, including the sharks they once kept in their aquarium and their 80-foot-long pythons, one of which supposedly slithered right in front of the creepypasta author, who initially assumed it was a statue. Disturbingly, the creepypasta mentions that dozens of walls, staircases, and objects lying around the resort had been spray-painted with the words "Abandoned by Disney," possibly by disgruntled employees who were fed up with Disney's sketchy doings.
I bet. I don't blame them.
At one point in the story, the author allegedly went down the stairs into a room that was labeled "Mascots Only" and came across a photo-negative version of a Mickey Mouse costume that somehow came to life and pulled its own head off in front of the author to scare him. Now, obviously, pretty much every single detail about this story from start to finish is completely fake. The same goes for every other story that's a part of this Abandoned by Disney creepypasta series. But it actually was based on some real events. There was once a real resort on a real island that Disney mysteriously abandoned back in the late 90s. Between 1974 and 1999, Discovery Island in Bay Lake, Florida was a popular Disney attraction open to the public, who were drawn there by the dozens of wild animal species roaming around the tropical landscape. Disturbingly, the resort ended up getting charged with animal cruelty after the company admitted that a few vultures had died after being captured by their employees.
See?
For unrelated, unspecified, and mysterious reasons, Disney Island was closed in 1999, and the name Discovery Island was passed on to one of the lands in Disney's Animal Kingdom. Since its closing, the island was pretty much left abandoned to rot under the elements, and over the years its structures have sustained major hurricane damage. Interestingly, as of 2024, all buildings and attractions of the original resort remain on the island, which gives it a pretty creepy and nostalgic vibe. Nowadays, the area is fully off limits to the public, but that hasn't stopped a few urban explorers from venturing out into the island and finding some pretty disturbing stuff. In 2004, urban explorer Shane Perez visited the island 5 years after its abandonment, swimming through 300 feet of freezing cold alligator-infested Florida lake water to reach Discovery Island and spend the night exploring the remains of the mysterious
Is he
resort.
lost his mind or what?
What
makes you think it's a good idea to travel that far through cold ass water to explore something abandoned? I get it, having that thrill for adventure and excitement, but to put your life at risk like that for a little bit of adventure is insane.
Shane and his friends discovered that several lights throughout the island were still somehow working. And a little more disturbingly, they found all kinds of odd things in the abandoned sheds, including snakes stuffed in Coke bottles and a bunch of animals that were left behind by Disney when the island closed,
No.
which is pretty similar to what was mentioned in the fictional creepypasta. Although Shane and his friends were only able to explore half of the island before the sun rose again, they uploaded all of their findings onto a now infamous blog post that ended up being featured on the news. Obviously, this didn't make Disney look too good, and as a result of trespassing, Shane was banned from all Disney resorts for the rest of his life. But he triggered a wave of intrigue around the island that has endured until this day. Over the years, a few more urban explorers have attempted to explore the island, leading to some pretty interesting videos, blog posts, and pictures. Nowadays, the island is under extremely heavy 24/7 surveillance, which would make it almost impossible to explore for a regular civilian. Still, the abandoned island turned creepypasta was one of the dozens of things that have irreparably damaged the public's perception of Disney, as it's pretty clear that behind the cute mouse costumes and the fairy tale facade, there's a bunch of stuff the higher-ups of the company definitely don't want the public to see.
Of course not. We all know something's up with these companies. It's not nothing new.
Man.
No, please don't piss me off already.
In April 2012, a Reddit user named Blue Title posted a story titled The Smiling Man. The story basically goes that at some point in 2012, Blue Title went for a solo walk in the middle of the night in Seattle, Washington after his roommate had fallen asleep. At some point in the evening between the hours of 1 a.m. and 2 a.m., he saw a strange-looking man dancing at the other end of the street. In the user's own words, it was a strange dance, similar to a waltz, but he finished each box with an odd forward stride. I guess you could say he was dance-walking, headed straight for me. At first, Blue Title tried to walk past him, giving the man as much space as possible to avoid coming into contact with him, but the guy just kept dancing closer and closer. What's most disturbing about the account is the way the user describes the appearance.
I'm sorry. I mean, I would be scared because it's like, why are you in the middle of the street in the middle of the night, like dancing by yourself? But it's also like, if you came at me with that type of dance, I'd probably laugh at you and be like, what the hell are you doing? Are you okay? Do you need help?
Based on the original post, the man was tall and lanky, wore an old suit, and had an extremely eerie expression on his face. His eyes were wide open and his head was tilted back to look at the sky. Even more unsettling, his mouth was twisted into a forced-looking smile that seemed permanently fixed on his face.
Okay, maybe he's just a happy man.
Short, the smiling man ended up chasing Blue Title for several blocks until the user eventually outran him and made it back to his apartment safely. There's a lot more detail to the chase, but I'm leaving out some of it for simplicity. Based on what was mentioned in the post, the user continued to live in that city for another 6 months and never went out on another solo late-night walk again. Now,
I wouldn't either.
This is usually the kind of story that you would read and immediately dismiss as fake, but the Smiling Man is one of those posts that there's no good reason to believe it's not true. After the story was posted, the Smiling Man turned into something of an urban legend and became a classic creepypasta, often being featured in horror forms and even being turned into multiple different viral short films over the years. Still, the original story was not designed to be a creepypasta as it came to be over time. The author has continued to insist it's real. For context, the Let's Not Meet subreddit, which is where the story was originally posted, was created for people to share their true accounts of scary in-person encounters they experienced firsthand. As per the guidelines of the subreddit, no fictional or paranormal stories are allowed, and any indication that a story was made up usually results in the post being immediately removed. All this to say that the Let's Not Meet admins make a big effort to keep the subreddit clean from any kind of stories that are obviously fake. That's not to say that some fabricated stories don't slip through the cracks from time to time, but I don't think the Smiling Man is one of them. Looking into Blue Title's activity on other subreddits, I found that they seem pretty honest and genuine, often discussing martial arts, music, and other topics unrelated to creepypastas and internet horror lore. The fact that the Smiling Man is pretty much the only story the user has told since opening his account in 2012 is a pretty good indication that it's true.
Right.
On top of that, dozens of users over the years have claimed to have seen the Smiling Man themselves, and a lot of the times it's the original author himself who shows up in the threads to fact check them and call them out when they're embellishing the story or fabricating details that are obviously fake. And sure, this is by no means 100% definitive proof that the Smiling Man was real, but I'm honestly inclined to believe that this actually happened. As for what the Smiling Man's intentions were on that night in 2012, it's really anyone's guess.
Bro, the people that keep making these short films are cracking me up.
Mentally insane, or really going out of his way to mess with Blue Title for no reason. With so many years having gone by since this incident took place, we'll likely never know. The only thing we can be sure of is that it's probably a good thing the OP ran away when he did. You never know what someone who's clearly not in their right mind is capable of,
That's what
especially
I'm
when there are
saying.
no witnesses around.
Especially nowadays. It's hard to tell anymore.
The year was 1991. In April of 2015, a Reddit user with the mysterious name I'm Sorry Michael posted a harrowing story in the No Sleep subreddit where he shared his first-hand experience of what it was like witnessing a 4-year-old get kidnapped from a school playground in the early 90s.
Wait, stop. Wait a minute. You seen somebody be kidnapped and you're just now speaking out in 2025?
Now, it's important to keep in mind that the No Sleep subreddit doesn't always feature true stories. In fact, it almost never does. It's pretty much entirely creepypastas. But you'll see why that's not so relevant in a second. The post was titled The Year Was 1991, and in it, the OP basically tells the story of how he arrived at a school sports field to toss around a ball with some family friends on a warm spring day. As soon as he arrived at the field, the OP allegedly saw a little boy in a blue jacket running on the playground close to the playing field. Suddenly, a suspicious-looking dark van pulled up to the playground and parked right over the hopscotch outline. A few seconds later, a man in a sketchy-looking, low-quality bear costume got out of the vehicle, promised the little boy some candy, and put him in the back of the van before driving away. Based on the post, the uploader immediately got into his vehicle and tried to catch up with the van, but because he was so unfamiliar with the area, he ended up getting lost. As soon as he called 911, the operator allegedly scolded him for prank calling and hung up on him. It wasn't until the next day that the OP supposedly saw in the news that a 4-year-old boy named Michael Dunahee had disappeared from a school playground the day before. Interestingly, through my research, I was able to find that Michael Dunahee was a real kid that had disappeared, and it really did take place on a school playground in 1991,
Bless his heart.
Which makes
Poor
this
boy.
Reddit post incredibly creepy. The real story goes that on March 24th, 1991, Crystal Dunahee, Michael's mother, was going to participate in a women's flag football practice at Blandshart Elementary School in Victoria, British Columbia. As soon as she arrived with her son at the school at around 12:30 p.m., Michael asked if he could go to the playground by himself. Immediately, Crystal felt that something wasn't right, but she let her son walk to the playground by himself under the condition that he had to stay there until...
And that's where she messed up. You don't ever let a child go nowhere by themselves. I get it. I understand independence and whatever. You think nothing of it, especially back then. But you don't ever let your child go by yourself. I say this every time when it comes to missing children. When it comes to any reaction that we have, it's literally the fact of you should never let your child go anywhere alone. Like, never. My mama never let me go nowhere alone. If my best friend was not with me, I was not going. It's that self-explanatory. Or if an adult wasn't there, I was never going. So I don't understand how people can let their kids, especially being this young, go to the park by themselves instead of them walking them down, monitoring them, especially with kids this young. It doesn't make sense to me. No.
his dad arrived at the school. Unfortunately, by the time his dad arrived, Michael was gone. A search was immediately launched, and Michael was officially declared a missing person. That day, the little boy had been wearing a blue hooded jacket, a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles t-shirt, rugby pants, and blue sneakers. But despite the massive search effort, which quickly became one of the largest police investigations in Canadian history, Michael was never seen again. Over the years, the cops have received over 11,000 tips on the disappearance, but none of them have led to anything significant. Strangely, even though there were dozens of people at the school field that day, there were no witnesses to Michael's disappearance. And the only thing that they could get out of a nearby passerby was that a man in his late 40s or early 50s with a brown van was seen near the playground around the time of the disappearance. Overall, a lot of the details from the official investigation match up perfectly with the Reddit post, but the majority of them were never confirmed by the cops. It's likely that the OP completely made the story up. But that doesn't change the fact that this is at least based on a real event that happened. Sadly, because the disappearance took place over 35 years ago, it's unlikely that Michael will ever be found at this point.
Bless him and his family's heart, though. All jokes aside, bless the heart and the family, of this child, and I hope this child is safe somewhere, still alive to this day. I hope they are found and the family gets justice or gets clarity.
The Alice Killings.
Oh boy,
The
this
Alice
is gonna be
Killings
great.
is a Japanese urban legend according to which from 1999 to 2005, a series of brutal, unexplainable murders took place in multiple different towns in Japan. Based on the legend, each victim's life was taken in a very different fashion.
So I'm guessing I'm never going to Japan now. Okay, great. I'm just kidding. I will, but that's insane.
Tied the murders together was the fact that a playing card was found near or on the victims' bodies when they were found by cops or passersby.
Where have I seen this
Disturbingly,
at?
the legend mentions that on the playing cards, the killer would write the name Alice in the victim's blood.
Is this
For
that
example,
one
of the victims
Netflix
was allegedly
show?
buried in a shallow grave with a queen of clubs marking its entrance. Another card with the king of diamonds was found crammed into the hand of another victim at a bar. Over time, people started putting their own twists on the urban legend, turning it into a creepypasta and adding all kinds of details to the original story, as usually happens online. But even though the specific details in the story of the Alice killings are all fake, they're all based on a completely true story that's just as terrifying as the creepypasta. In 2003, an ex-military guy turned security officer in Madrid, Spain, named Alfredo Galán Sotillo shot a 50-year-old man named Juan Francisco Ledesma in the head in front of his 2-year-old son. From there, Alfredo went on to kill another 5 victims over the next month, all of them picked completely randomly and for no good reason. After taking his second victim's life, he left a tarot card with an ace of clubs near the crime scene, after which, as you can probably guess, the media started sensationalizing the case, giving Alfredo much more attention than he deserved. And thanks to that, he went on to kill another 4 victims and severely injure another 3, often leaving tarot cards at the scene to fit the picture the media had made of him. In addition to the cards, the killer did have a particular MO in the way he took his victims' lives. All of them were shot at point-blank range, and all of them were picked at random, unlike most serial killers who often stalk and get to know their victims before taking their lives. On July 3, 2003, the playing card killer, as he quickly became known, turned himself into the police in a severely intoxicated state, immediately confessing to the string of murders that had taken Madrid by storm that year. As soon as he sobered up, he tried to take back his confession, but at that point it was too late, as he had already revealed to the cops certain details about the pen markings on the cards that weren't even made public. Disturbingly, during the investigation, it was revealed that before carrying out his gruesome crimes, the killer would wish his victims good morning and order them to kneel down before executing them. That same year, Galán was sentenced to 142 years in prison, a punishment he's serving to this day. In 2023, Netflix made a documentary about him titled The Playing Card Killer. And at the end of the day, that's probably what these killers really want deep down, attention. But fortunately, he won't be getting out anytime soon. The crazy amount of attention the media gives these killers doesn't motivate more lunatics to seek notoriety through these kinds of crimes. The Doppelganger. The Doppelganger is a pretty well-known creepypasta that tells the fictional story of a kid named Trey who lived with his parents in a small rural county in eastern Tennessee. Based on the original Reddit post titled The Doppelganger, Trey's father Henry was a county warden who usually came home from work late in the evenings. One night, Henry came home and hesitantly let his wife and son know that one of his coworkers had been missing for 2 days.
Good lord.
That same night, Trey's mom and dad made him promise that he wouldn't open the door for anyone, even for his own parents. The next day, Henry announced to his family that his coworker Mike's body had been found by a creek. Disturbingly, he also mentioned that even though Mike had only been reported missing for 2 days, his body was declared to be at least 2 weeks old when the authorities found him. This of course meant that somebody had been posing as Mike for several days, spending time with his family and going through his days pretending to be him. That night when Trey went up to his room, he heard a knock on his window. It was his dad's voice asking to let him in, and claiming that he had just gone outside to check on something and had accidentally locked himself out. Eerily, that's when Trey's dad appeared in his doorframe, holding a finger up to his lips, signaling for his son to be quiet. After scaring away whoever was at the window, the family went down to sit together at the kitchen table, fearing for their lives. Later that evening, the impersonator once again tried to enter the house, pretending to be Trey's dad. This time, Henry called his officer friends over who agreed to help him track down whoever or whatever it was that was pretending to be him. While his dad was out, Trey went up to his room to hide under the blankets, and when his dad came back, he scolded him and his mother for having left the front door unlocked. Still, the family went to sleep, and the next morning, Trey woke up to an overpowering smell coming from his parents' bedroom. He immediately realized his parents weren't home. Upon opening his parents' closet door, the body of a woman who looked just like his mother tumbled out and onto the floor. As soon as his parents got home, they made up a story to explain what had happened, softening some of the details so their son wouldn't end up even more traumatized. The creepypasta ends with Trey noticing that his dad's hair is a different shade of black than it usually was, leaving the story on a cliffhanger. Obviously, pretty much everything in the creepypasta is entirely made up. But the story itself was based on an illness called Capgras syndrome, which is a real psychiatric condition in which people end up convinced that their family members and other people close to them have been replaced by imposters or doppelgangers. Through my research, I found that people with Capgras syndrome often end up becoming aggressive and even violent with the loved ones they accuse of being imposters.
Oh my goodness.
And disturbingly, a pretty clear correlation has been found between Capgras syndrome and violent homicides within families. I also found that people with pre-existing neurological disorders such as Parkinson's disease, epilepsy, and stroke are more prone to developing Capgras syndrome, as well as people who suffer from schizophrenia and similar illnesses. One particular case that caught my attention involved a 24-year-old male veteran who turned himself into the police to confess that he had allegedly been violent with his girlfriend. Interestingly, when the cops called his girlfriend to get her side of the story, she mentioned that the allegations were completely false and that her boyfriend had no history of violence. What followed was a pretty confusing series of events where the patient ended up revealing that he was convinced his entire family were imposters. Disturbingly, he claimed that his mother had been replaced by a government employee who had been sent to elicit a confession from him about his behavior while he was in the military. Apparently, the guy felt guilty about having taken naps during work hours and punching a wall during boot camp and was scared that his mother would find out about it.
My God.
Even though the man claimed he had also been violent with his mother, she denied the allegations and assured the doctors that her son was not a violent person. Fortunately,
Poor guy.
The guy was okay. But I can't imagine how terrifying it must be both to wake up convinced that your family isn't really your family and to no longer be recognized by someone you love.
Oh man. Oh wow. This is the next video right here. This one in the top right. Yep, that's the next video. Alright you guys, I hope you guys did enjoy this video. Again, I apologize that there's been a lack of reactions on the channel. I'm going to work on that and try to divide. As I said before, if you're interested in watching some of the gaming, I'm going to be doing Warzone. I'm going to do some roleplay on GTA 5. I'm also going to be playing horror games for Roblox with my best friends and maybe a few other friends. We're also going to be doing House of Ashes at some point. If you guys don't know the Dark Anthology series as well, that's another one that's going to be on the list for the gaming section. So if that's something you're interested in, I'll leave the link to my other channel in the description, and also just follow me on all social medias down below in the description. I'll leave them all down there. But yeah, I hope you guys did enjoy this video. If you did, leave a like, and if you haven't already, please subscribe. Feel me? Welcome to the gang, you feel me? I'm happy to have all of you here. I'm very blessed to have all of you here following me, liking all my stuff, so I do appreciate the love that y'all show me. I'll see you guys in the next video. I love y'all. Peace.